Welcome to Art with Lórien, the place to reconnect with your divine inner artist and discover the joy of painting outside the lines. And so welcome to episode 10. That's 10 classes designed to awaken your inner creativity, your divine inner artist, and to build the foundations of art making and to start to build a strong foundation of the different elements of art and principles of design. And so in this episode, we will be exploring form, an element of art that deals with form, which is the 3D version of shape, and it's an extension of shape. And we'll also be creating a painting inspired by the American artist Georgia O'Keeffe. So let's get started. And so now I'd like to introduce this episode's art supplies that you'll require. You will require a piece of Bristol board, and that'll be to make a simple adjustable viewfinder, which I'll go over in a moment. You'll require a sheet of your watercolor paper of choice. So I'm going to be using this one again, my Canson, 140 pound. So this one is what I'll be using, and whatever watercolor paper you like. Your gouache paints, your spray bottle, brushes, water container, palette knives, palette, pencil, and this time we're also going to be using a ruler, a pair of scissors, and 2 paper clips. And then special request for our painting is to have a live flower. It can be a flowering plant. It could be a dried flower or a silk flower, but live flowers are kind of nice. So if you have any of those, or you would like to pick one from your garden, or if you buy them at the store, however you get them, an orchid's fine. I'll be using this orchid for my painting, and hopefully that's everything. I think I've got everything. So you may also want your paper towels, your Viva paper towels. Sometimes I use them. Okay, so now I want to talk about the viewfinder. So artists use these viewfinders as a tool to crop and to compose a painting where we would like to, enlarge or like isolate and focus on one element of our subject. So it could even be, a landscape, or it could be something close up or something natural like a flower, or it could be a person. And we use these to eliminate extra things and just to focus. And so what's really important, and I'm going to talk about how you make it, is the proportions, and I'll talk about that in a moment. So what you're going to do to make this viewfinder is you're going to take your Bristol board, and it's basically 2 L shapes. And what I did was I made them 6 inches wide, or long. So this is 6 inches, 6 inches, 6 and 6, and then they're 1 inch in width. So I basically use my ruler, I use the corner of the paper, and I drew the lines with my pencil, and then I carefully cut them out with the scissors. And then you just reverse them. You reverse the L and put them together like that. And the paper clips hold your pieces together. Now, how to get the little window that's going to work with your paper. So the proportions must be equal to your paper size. So for example, I'm using a 12 by 16 piece of watercolor paper. And so this is 1.5 by 2 inches. It's basically 3/4 to 1. And so if that makes sense. So this proportionally it's whatever I see here and draw here, it'll match. So hopefully that makes sense. So this is 2 inch wide, 1.5 inches in height, and this is 16 and 12. So forms. So as you know, with shapes, we've looked at geometric, organic, biomorphic, and amorphic. And they're flat, they're 2-dimensional. Now forms are basically shapes with the dimension that's created through adding value. And we've studied value, which is the tints and the shades of color. So when you use tints and shades you create in painting and drawing, it creates the dimension, it creates that depth, and then that is a form. So for example, a circle, and I'm going to demonstrate, becomes a sphere. So we have a flat circle, and then through shading, it's going to become a sphere. Now, how do you start to shade a circle to become a sphere? When we look at forms, there's always one light source. I'm going to have the light source coming from right here. And just think of it like a lamp, a light shining, or the sun. A light source. And then the darkest part is at the bottom, and that's where the light is not shining. And then as you get closer and closer up to where the source of light is, it gets lighter in value. So just like when we were creating the tints and the shades color wheels, we had those gradations where it was light to dark, or it went from one shade into the darkest shade and one tint into the lightest tint. So we're doing the same thing when we do some shading here. It's the word shading. It's dark where the light isn't shining, and it becomes lighter. So I'm doing a little less pressure as we get to the light source. And the application that I'm showing here on a circle becoming a sphere, same concept applies to human faces and natural objects and man-made objects, in terms of there's always going to be a light source, and then this area that does become lighter until there's a very light spot, and then there's this effect of dimension and depth that's created. And so I went ahead and completed my shading using my light source here. I did use my finger a bit, and I did a little bit of this cross hatching here, which is when you kind of do this one way and then the other way, sort of like a Triscuit cracker. So I did that, I blended it with my finger, and so now we have two-dimensional shape, three-dimensional form, and a sphere, circle to sphere. And a couple other examples are triangles can become cones or pyramids, as well as rectangles can become prisms, and so on. I'll put some examples up on the screen. And so now let's dive into our activity, our painting, using our flower and painting and being inspired through the style and the artist Georgia O'Keeffe. So Georgia O'Keeffe, one of the types of painting she's very well known for are her nature paintings of flowers, where she crops in very tightly, and it's like an abstract painting, really. It's she crops in so close that the painting actually is of like a macro or a zoomed in flower. And so she brings the petals right over to the edge. They're bleeding off the edge. Just a few examples here. There's parts of it that are cropped out, and she just fills the whole painting canvas with the flower edge to edge, and it doesn't fit inside tight. It bleeds out, it extends out, and it's cropped, and it's like supersized. It's enlarged, it's macro. And so this was a painting style that she did lots and lots of amazing flower paintings that are in collections all over the world. And these are just a few examples. And so when we do ours, I'd like to think about the colors that are being used here. Vibrant colors. We're going to be painting vibrant colors of your choice, of course, using our viewfinder and focusing on our flower in a macro way, and then cropping it and then drawing it on the paper using a contour drawing technique that I'll be showing you. So I know for some of you this may seem like a big ask to draw a flower. Maybe that is something that brings up some fear or anxiety, and what I have to say to that is just have fun, play. There's no mistakes. There's only happy accidents. We're going to take our time. If you draw really lightly, you can always erase. This is supposed to be fun and enjoyable, and we're playing. So just have fun with it and join me in doing that. And that's the spirit of this show. So let's get started with drawing, contour drawing of our flower using the viewfinder, watercolor paper, pencil, and our eyes and hands, of course. And patience. So what you're going to do is you'll have your little window proportioned to the size of paper that you're using, and you just hold it up to your flower, and it's like you're taking a photograph using your phone or whatever you use. If you're using a typical camera, an old school camera, you look through the viewfinder and you think, you decide, what am I going to snap? What am I going to snap? And so I'm looking here and I see where I'm going to compose this painting, this drawing. And a contour drawing is when you draw what you see, looking mostly at the object and less at the paper, but sort of like, sighting the paper. And then, of course, this is, it's a little bit of a challenge, which is good, is holding this steady and drawing. And I'm going to draw very, very lightly. And it may not be recognizable as a flower, which is okay, because this is an abstracted, cropped, or magnetized, and even monumentalized flower. So, just like the style of Georgia O'Keeffe. So I'm going to look at looking at the object more than the paper, or at least equal. It's very light. I'm just getting these nice, wonderful organic shapes. Oops. Moving around a lot. And I've already made this decision that I'd like to, since this is a white flower, it is beautiful, and I did move it so I could demonstrate I'm right-handed. So it's easier to have your flower on your non-dominant side, and using your viewfinder in your non-dominant hand. Well, you could always switch, but for this exercise, I'm going to use my dominant hand. I'm going to change the color. This is a white flower, and because I'd like to do a vibrant version, I'm going to turn it into a different color flower. Just use my imagination and my paints to do that. So even though I'm moving around a little bit, I'm still going to get the essence here. It may not look exactly as, well, it definitely won't look exactly as it is. True to life, it'll be an abstracted version, but yeah, so I'm going to stop there. Okay, so this is what I have, and hopefully you'll be able to see, is I have a very light, so maybe you won't be able to see it, but I have a very light contour drawing of my cropped orchid flower. And now I'm going to start to mix my paints and playing with the idea of form, just like in these paintings here. These do have a three-dimensionality because of the shading, the tints and the shades, and that blending here. It's the blending, and they call it feathering. So these are some really awesome things to learn. We can explore this a lot more. This isn't something that's all going to be encapsulated in this episode, but just starting to work with these skills and use this vocabulary and the terms will help us become more acquainted, and then practice. So let's get started with the painting. So as you can see, I've added some paints to my palette, and I'm going to start mixing and painting. So I've got some gorgeous, it's called Crimson. I'm going to bring in a little of the white, got my tint, and bloop, and yeah. This is my main color, this Crimson. And then I'll be using some of the golds and the yellows. Okay, so instead of, oh wow, look at that. Instead of white, I'm mixing it up. I'd like to have a vibrant painting today, so. Now, you know, the pencil lines are guidelines, and you can stay within the confines of them, or you can kind of go outside the lines. There's some flexibility always. And I already know I'm going to require more white. Spray bottle. Spraying directly on the paper is totally acceptable, and actually in this case, because we're doing a very flowy, contoured abstract painting, organic shapes painting, you can use your spray bottle to moisten the paper if you like, to add that wet on wet, it's called, effect. And that will help the paints breathe and flow and move. And will really make it easy to move your color around, to sculpt with it. I'm using just one brush here. I'm going to bring in flat to my little darker. So different brushes serve different purposes, and yeah, just use. Of course, these spread paint around a lot, and they are nice blenders. Now those pointed rounds are good too for a little more detail, drawing with the tip of it. To move this paint around and to blend, I'm going to use this bigger flat brush. Now, another thing you can do is with a dry brush, you can blend. This is a dry brush, no water, and I'm going to just blend here. Use my apron or towel to remove excess paint and create this beautiful effect, blending the colors. Okay, so as you can see, I found a place where I'm happy with what I have. So I've called this my completion point, and here's what I painted today. It's an abstract organic form painting using a real object, something from nature, using observational drawing skills to also draw in using the contour style, and then paint using some of our form, knowledge, tints, shades, color, and in the style of Georgia O'Keeffe. And so I hope you're happy with your creation and that you enjoyed yourself and played and loosened up, and you're starting to feel your sea legs with painting and feel comfortable in embodying this experience and really just enjoying it. And I wanted to point out in my painting here, I noticed that this was actually not white paint, it's the paper coming through, and that's what I would call a happy accident. I really like it. And so it's an organic process, an organic form painting. And with that, I look forward to next time, and I'll see you in the studio. And look who joined us. She did her behind the scenes work, and here's her on camera cameo to say hello, to say high five. This is Movie. She's getting big. She almost weighs 20 pounds. She'll be 14 weeks old, and we say thank you, and we'll see you in the studio.